In the sweltering summer of 1923, a German man loaded a wooden wheelbarrow to the brim with hundreds of billions of paper marks just to buy a single loaf of bread. He left his cash outside the bakery for a brief moment to check the shop window. A thief rushed past, dumped the pile of paper currency onto the dirty street, and stole the empty wooden wheelbarrow. And to understand why the hell that happened, you need to understand macroeconomics. To do that, we must uncover the simple mechanical engine that determines the exact value of every dollar in your bank account today. The base layer of exchange. The global economy often looks like a terrifying, unreadable mess of stock tickers, flashing red charts, and academic jargon designed to make you feel stupid. The entire global system actually consists of millions of incredibly simple transactions happening every single second of the day. Every single time you tap your debit card to buy an iced energy drink, you are actively driving the macroeconomic machine forward. You are exchanging your hard-earned capital for a physical product from a business. That business then takes your capital and uses it to pay their commercial rent to a property owner. That property owner then takes that exact same cash and spends it on a luxury vacation or a new vehicle. Have you ever stopped to realize that your personal spending is the exact income of another person? Every single dollar you willingly hand over to a grocery store, a clothing brand, or a digital streaming service becomes the revenue they use to survive. When millions of individuals feel confident about the future, they spend money freely across the entire marketplace. This increased spending causes businesses to experience record-breaking profits and rapidly expand their operations. These expanding businesses must hire more workers to keep up with the booming demand. Those newly hired workers suddenly have fresh income to spend at other local businesses, which forces the entire economic pie to expand naturally over time. Consider the journey of a single dollar spent at a local restaurant. The restaurant owner uses that dollar to purchase fresh vegetables from a regional wholesale distributor. The distributor uses that exact same revenue to pay the salary of a delivery truck driver. The truck driver then takes that money and pays for his son's basketball coaching fees. This continuous chain of transactions represents the true heartbeat of macroeconomics. Your single dinner purchase creates a massive ripple effect that supports multiple families and businesses across your community. The total health of the system depends entirely on how quickly and freely these dollars circulate through the population. The exact opposite happens when a sudden wave of fear causes people to collectively tighten their belts. If you decide to skip your morning coffee and brew it at home to save a few bucks, the local cafe loses a tiny fraction of its expected revenue. If 100,000 people make that exact same decision simultaneously, the cafe faces a severe cash crunch. They will cut back on their orders from the local milk dairy and put off hiring that new barista. The dairy farmer now faces lower revenues and cancels their order for a brand new tractor from a heavy machinery factory. This simple shift in consumer psychology can trigger a cascading downward spiral that decimates multiple unrelated industries across the country. Economists track the total velocity and volume of all these combined transactions using a metric called gross domestic product. You probably hear this specific acronym yelled by financial anchors on television every single quarter. It represents the total market value of all finished goods and services produced within a nation over a specific time frame. A steadily rising number indicates a healthy, expanding system with smooth transaction flows. Separately, a dropping number signals a sluggish system where people hoard cash out of deep economic anxiety. The entire machine relies entirely on human confidence and mutual trust to keep spinning. The credit accelerator. The simple transaction machine becomes incredibly supercharged when we introduce the concept of credit. Credit functions as an economic time machine that allows you to pull your future spending power into the present moment. When you buy a house with a 30-year mortgage, you are promising to work for decades to pay off today's consumption. This massive injection of capital allows you to spend far more money than you actually earn in a single year. Your increased spending instantly becomes the massive income of the home builder and the real estate agent. This mechanical reality explains why credit is the ultimate accelerator of economic growth. Imagine a young freelance video editor who wants to upgrade his entire studio setup to attract high-paying corporate clients. He lacks the $10,000 of cash required to purchase the top-tier computer and camera gear today. He walks into a local commercial bank and secures a business loan based on his excellent credit score and future earning potential. The bank creates this fresh capital out of thin air through the magic of fractional reserve lending systems. The editor immediately spends that newly created cash at a local electronics retailer. The retailer now has $10,000 of fresh revenue to pay its staff and order more inventory from global suppliers. This transaction would be completely impossible in a world without credit. The electronics retailer would have to wait years for the video editor to slowly save up physical cash from his small gigs. The bank loan bypasses this waiting period entirely and instantly injects purchasing power into the marketplace. The retailer can now spend that money immediately, creating further income for other participants in the economy. This multiplier effect means that a single dollar of credit can spark multiple rounds of real economic activity. Credit effectively increases the total amount of spending power available in society without needing immediate physical production. Lending naturally creates highly predictable cycles because every single loan eventually requires full repayment. The present moment feels fantastic because you are enjoying the benefits of borrowed wealth without immediate sacrifice. The future requires a complete modification of your lifestyle because you must eventually spend significantly less than you earn to clear the principal and interest. This mandatory reduction in your personal spending will inevitably reduce the income of the businesses around you. This basic mathematical truth explains why economies move in rolling waves of massive expansion and sudden contraction. Central banks act as the primary regulators of this credit machine by aggressively manipulating interest rates. You can think of the central bank as an institutional bouncer who controls the volume of alcohol at a wild fraternity party. When the economic party gets too rowdy and consumer prices start skyrocketing, the central bank hikes interest rates to make borrowing incredibly painful. Higher rates discourage everyday consumers from swiping their credit cards for luxury items and stop corporations from funding massive expansions. This deliberate slowdown cools off the entire system before a dangerous inflationary fire burns the house down. The short-term dance. The manipulation of interest rates directly creates the short-term debt cycle, which typically lasts between 5 and 8 years. When the central bank slashes interest rates to near 0%, credit becomes incredibly cheap and accessible for everyone. Businesses flooded with cheap capital begin competing fiercely for workers, which pushes wages significantly higher. Workers with fatter paychecks naturally spend more money on retail goods, dining out, and real estate. This massive surge in demand forces companies to raise their prices to maximize their profits. This systemic rise in consumer prices is what economists call inflation. Excessive inflation quickly destroys a nation's standard of living. When the cost of groceries and rent rises faster than average wages, the working class experiences a severe reduction in their quality of life. The central bank must step in to stop the bleeding by aggressively raising interest rates. This policy instantly increases the cost of car loans, credit cards, and business debt across the entire country. Consumers suddenly look at their monthly budgets and decide to cut back on discretionary spending. This drop in spending forces businesses to lower their prices to attract customers, which leads to a phase of deflation. Deflation creates immense danger for the broader macroeconomic stability of a nation. When prices are falling, consumers deliberately delay their major purchases because they expect things to be even cheaper next month. This widespread delay causes business revenues to plummet, which forces companies to lay off millions of workers to cut costs. The rising unemployment rate further reduces total spending, creating a vicious recessionary spiral that can completely freeze the national engine. The central bank must quickly lower rates again to jumpstart the transaction machine. This constant back and forth behavior creates the familiar business cycle that defines modern life. We see alternating periods of booming economic growth followed by painful recessions that dominate the news cycle. Most people view these events as random acts of God or unpredictable natural disasters. They are actually the completely logical result of human psychology reacting to the availability of credit. The central bank spends all its time trying to balance this delicate scale to keep the economy moving forward. They want steady growth without letting inflation or unemployment spiral out of control. The long-term reckoning. The real danger emerges when we realize that the short-term debt cycle repeats over and over again for decades. During each consecutive cycle, human nature ensures that people always borrow more money during the booms than they pay back during the busts. People naturally prioritize immediate consumption, which leads to a massive accumulation of debt over time. This cumulative behavior causes total debt to grow significantly faster than actual economic productivity over long periods. This slow accumulation of leverage creates the long-term long-term debt cycle, which typically takes 75 to 100 years to reach its final peak. During the long upward phase of this massive cycle, everyone feels completely bulletproof and incredibly wealthy. Asset prices for real estate, stocks, and crypto skyrocket to astronomical levels because the market is completely flooded with cheap credit. People gladly take out massive loans to buy overpriced homes because they believe prices will continue rising forever. Financial institutions willingly lower their lending standards to maximize their transaction fees. The entire society looks incredibly prosperous on paper, but this entire prosperity is built on a fragile foundation of extreme leverage. Eventually, the total cost of servicing these massive debts becomes completely unmanageable for the average citizen. When a nation finally hits the absolute peak of the long-term debt cycle, the central bank runs completely out of ammunition. They can no longer lower interest rates to stimulate the economy because those rates are already sitting at 0%. The traditional methods of reviving the transaction engine completely fail to produce any meaningful results. The country enters a brutal phase known as a deleveraging, where debts must be aggressively reduced across the entire system. This dark period involves a combination of painful debt write-downs, government austerity, and massive wealth redistribution. This brings us back to the tragic story of Weimar Germany in 1923 and their catastrophic currency collapse. The German government faced immense pressure to pay massive war reparations while their economy was completely shattered. They chose the easiest political path available and ordered the central bank to print unlimited amounts of paper marks to pay their bills. This massive flood of unbacked paper currency completely destroyed the public's trust in the money supply. Prices began doubling every few hours, leading to a state of hyperinflation where a single cup of coffee could cost millions of marks by the time you finished drinking it. The lesson from this historical disaster is that printing money cannot create actual real-world wealth. True economic wealth comes from the actual production of tangible goods, efficient services, and real technological innovation. When a government prints money to solve its financial problems, it is simply transferring wealth away from the citizens who hold cash. This hidden tax destroys the middle class and completely destabilizes the fabric of society. Understanding this reality is the first major step toward protecting your personal financial future from systemic risks. The ultimate goal of mastering macroeconomics is to gain absolute sovereignty over your own financial destiny. Focus entirely on controlling your personal portfolio positioning to survive and profit from inevitable central bank decisions. Position yourself to benefit from both the booms and the busts by acquiring assets that produce real value regardless of the current currency value. Focus on building high-value skills, owning profitable businesses, and acquiring scarce assets that the government cannot easily duplicate with a digital printing press. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now to join our community of forward-thinking wealth builders. Drop a comment below letting me know which phase of the long-term debt cycle you think we are currently living through. I'll see you in the next one.